Hello, everyone. My name is Mikhail Nepomniachtchi, and welcome to this webinar. And please let me know if you can hear me and see my screen. And then we can start. We will talk today about my experience with Zustand library, and we'll see how it's been used in our production project, how we moved. But again, please let me know if you can hear me well and you can see me as well. There is a slight delay before I can see your replies, or probably you're just silent. Okay, you can. Cool. Then I close the chat and focus on the presentation. So again, my name is Mikhail, and we will talk about Zustand. This is my favorite state manager library. At least it's been my favorite for the last 2 years, and we will speak about practical patterns, patterns we chose for our project in my current company. And the usual people's impression when they start working with Zustand is simplicity. And people ask this question, which I state in the main slide: can the state management really be that simple? And the simplicity really matters, and we will talk about it. Maybe it's in some cases it will be too simple, but again, every time we decide on certain approaches, we need to consider different aspects, and we will talk about this as well. So let me introduce myself again. My name is Mikhail Nepomniachtchi. I work and live in Spain for the last 4 years. I'm an engineer and manager currently at Leo Vegas. Before I worked as a front-end engineer, as a full-stack engineer as well, but now I lead 2 developers teams. Also, I've been doing YouTube vlogging for the last more than 5 years actually. And I recorded more than 10 video courses. You can find them in Udemy and Stepik, but it's worth mentioning that my videos and video courses, they are in Russian, not in English. So what we'll cover today, I will explain why we chose Zustand for our project. We will speak about key concepts, pattern we decided to use in our project, and also we will try to answer the question when to start using Zustand in your project, and maybe when it's not the best options. And in the end, obviously, we can speak about your questions and try to answer them. So what was my experience? We actually migrated one of the project fully migrated. This is the case number 1, and the case number 2, this is ongoing one. Let me explain both of them. So the first one, our project, which is a sports book betting application, and it's used GraphQL and WebSocket for the data. And before, we used a lot of React context providers. So it was a deep nested component application wrapped in a lot of context, and it was a lot of renders. The first time I joined the project, I opened React DevTools, and I couldn't believe how many flashes I saw just after clicking one of the simplest button in the app. And people didn't care. The performance was not the main priority. I don't know why at that time, but with my time in the project, in several months after I started, the performance became a priority. So we decided to change this approach, and obviously state management was one of the topic we decided to do instead of this amount of React context, and it of course it helped us to remove this not needed re-renders, but also it helps a lot to do a proper code splitting, because now we could say, okay, this part of the app we can don't use everywhere. We can split it, and it was also true for different part of the state. It was global before, but now we didn't do it as global. And also Zustand helped us to do it incremental, so we could start removing context providers piece by piece and introduce more Zustand logic. So why we chose Zustand in the first place? First of all, we had 5 different front-end teams working on the same project, and obviously everyone has a different experience. Some people worked with Redux before, and they personally didn't like the idea of working with Redux again. I don't know why. I personally like Redux as well. Some people worked with other state management library. Some of them worked only with React context providers. And we thought, okay, if we try and choose something completely different, like XState or Effector or some other library with atomic approaches, then we will need to learn. And we will need to learn a lot as a team, and too many people will need to spend time in a learning curve. But with Zustand, it was rather simple. The basic documentation, just to start working with that, it doesn't need a lot of time. An hour might be enough just to start working. And we created a POC, proof of concept, and it worked fine. Everyone liked the proof of concept, and we just everyone agreed that this library suits our purposes. And when we get a new project which was acquired from a different company, we understood that probably we want to do this switch again. But in this time it was Redux, and actually it was a very old Redux approach, not a Redux toolkit at all. And it also was mixed between 2 different approaches. When in one case we had Redux with hooks, with React Redux library, use selector, use dispatch, and also an old approach without this library when we use the connect function and those hooks to inject state and actions into React components. So it was a lot of reducers, and it made the code splitting also challenging. So we also decided that we want to move it to Zustand. But this is part of our company, but not the part I work currently in. So I'm not sure where they are, but they also do this change, and they are also happy that they made this decision. So let's start from the basic, assuming that you probably never worked with Zustand at all. Probably you heard that people call it Zustand or any other names. I just can say that Zustand in German means state. And since it's a German word, it's not Zustand at all. You can call it whatever you like. I will keep calling it Zustand. Maybe even my pronunciation is far from perfect. But the main idea here is that we have this tiny library, and one function might be enough for most of the cases. And this is a function create, which takes callback as a parameter. And this callback, in this case, provides us a set function to update this state, and then it returns an object with a state. So we can have as much properties as we need, and then actions to update this state, and these actions will use the set method. It can also have a get method, but we will not talk about this at this moment. Then in later in the project, you can import the hook we receive as a result of the call of create function. We can use this hook in any part of our application and get everything what's inside. Again, it's a very basic example. We will use selectors to get only values we need in particular cases. But this is the main idea. We have a singleton hook as a result, and we can use this hook across the whole app. So the first question might be, why is a singleton hook and how it's different to any other hooks? So I have a very basic example comparing use state and what we have as a store in Zustand. So in use state or use reducer, we have it scoped to a component. Let's say we have a counter component. We can create as many instances of this component as we want, but the state itself will not be connected between different instances. So it's scoped inside of an instance. But when it comes to Zustand store, even though it's still a hook, it's a singleton hook, and it will use the same value across the different instances of the same component, or even different components, but with the same state, with the same hook. Then we go to our patterns. So I will share a different solution we decided to use in our project. I will give you a big picture. If you want more details, please ask in your question. I can share my screen and show some code. Obviously not the project code, but rather my pet project, just for educational purposes. So how we structure everything. In our source folder, we have a store. And in store, we store basically separate domains or features, whatever you like to call it. And then we have this feature store TS, where we actually create the store. And then we have also hooks and selectors. We will talk about it later. And having this approach, basically, we don't have the global store. And it helps us to do the better code splitting and use only part of the store we actually need in the certain part of the application. It's easier to scale, easier to add more functionality without knowing how everything is connected, because it's not connected when we don't need it. Then the next decision we took was about actions. So let's take a look first at the types. So it's not listed everything here, but usually we have the state interface when we describe all the regular properties. It can be primitive, it can be object types, but then all the actions we put inside of a separate property. So we group all the actions. It help us to make things more organized. At the same time, we can later benefit from this approach in the application when we work with selectors. Probably we will see it in next slides. So later, how we use everything in component level. We saw it before, that we can call our hook in any place and receive every values. It can work, but probably you will never want to do this. And as the same as in Redux, probably you will use selector functions to extract only pieces you really need to use in the app. Otherwise, in case you have more properties, but you need only one of them, but other properties change, you will get extra pre-renders. This is why you will use selectors all the time. And for selectors purposes, we have dedicated files. So we create those selectors functions to not create them from scratch in every single file, which obviously can be an option as well, but we prefer to have them separately. And then the first selector I listed here is actually actions selector. So we can use one selector just to extract any other actions from the same store. So again, going back, we can receive both of them just using the same selector. And since this is an object, action object with all the actions, it will never change. We will change only properties, not the functions. So we find it's very convenient for our code base. Then the same approach for any other properties, but sometimes we might have something more complex, like an object or an array with different properties. And this is a more complex idea. We need to remember that in those cases, in order to not have extra re-renders, we need to remember about useShallow, but there is another topic about it in the next slide as well. So hooks, I would say that selector might be enough. So we have a store with that create function, and then we have selectors next to the store, so we can use them with our hook that we got from Zustand. But we decided to make a step further. We found a good article in the internet proposing this approach. We like it, and we use it. Basically, how it works: we have this store hook, and then we use this store hook in our hooks TS file. We use selectors, we create it next to it, and then we create our custom hooks. Usually it by naming it has the same domain name as before, but then it says, okay, what I receive when I import this hook. And then on component level, you need just invoke this function and get everything you need. If it's needed, you can also provide some parameters here, but most of the time it's just a hook. You invoke it and you receive whatever you need, and most of the times just importing and reading the name, it's self-explanatory. This is why we like this approach, but still, in my opinion, sometimes we have too much boilerplate, and maybe selectors still could be enough. Let's focus on useShallow feature. Basically, this is about extra re-renders, see how to prevent them. In my case, I remember different scenarios when my app just crashed when I didn't use this hook. Again, built-in hook from Zustand. We imported from Zustand/shallow. And the purpose is to use it around the complex selectors when we return an object or arrays, stuff like that. Use it, please. So this very dummy demo, but in this case, just imagine that in this store, we have a lot of properties, and our component has only not only two properties, but more. And in some component, we use this hook to get these two values, but something else has changed. This component will change as well. But in case of useShallow, we will have this component updated only when search or category changed. Going forward, let's talk about middlewares. Probably if you worked with Redux, you also know about middlewares, and probably you use them a lot. Zustand provides some middlewares from out of the box. Plus, it offers community middlewares as well directly in the documentation. Honestly, we used only two middlewares at the moment. I would love to have a third one. I will talk about it as well. But let's focus on the first one, DevTools. Obviously, you need DevTools when you work on complex features, and having a built-in DevTools, it really helps. Especially if you have Redux experience before, you will even benefit from having this DevTools because actually it uses the same Chrome extension called Redux DevTools, even though it's a completely different state management. But let's see, it calls DevTools, and the way how we use middlewares in Zustand might look a bit strange, especially if you use TypeScript. So in order to have a proper types with create function, you use a generic first and put your store types. Then you have an invocation of the function without anything, and a second invocation. And inside of a second invocation, you have your middlewares nested one to another. And then in the last middleware, you have your state, the original state. In our case, sometimes we prepare initial state, sometimes we put it here. Most of the time it's prepared in advance and just spread it here. Then the same actions as we spoke before, here only one action listed. And in case of DevTools, it also has a second parameter to provide some options to DevTools. And why it's needed? Because with options, we can also say, okay, we need DevTools only in development. And this is how we use it in our project. We don't allow anyone else to see what happens in details with our application. Whenever a user clicks, we can only check everything when we actually work on it. Then the name, we can actually omit all of them. But the name, probably not very useful. In our case, we will focus on this one, the name of the store, to see how it looks in the DevTools. Let's jump to the picture, actually. Again, if you worked with Redux before, you probably know how it looks, Redux DevTools. Again, Redux DevTools, not a Zustand DevTools. It's a Chrome extension called Redux DevTools. And it looks like we have, on the left, we have different actions. And actions have two parts of the name. So on the left, before the slash, this is actually this store name. And then the name after slash, it's a bit trickier to get it, but I will show you how to do it as well. Plus, on the right side, we can see the action with the payload and also what changed after the certain action. So we can do this time traveling using Redux DevTools extension. So in order to get the second part of the action name, we need to take care of all the actions. That might look a bit weird, but it is how it is. So when we use this set function, again, we receive it as a parameter from Zustand. We usually provide only one argument here. But in order to make DevTools work, we need to provide a second one. I have no idea what was the idea behind it, but definitely not for DevTools purposes. We need only third parameter. In this case, it can be only a string, just to say, okay, something happened, and this is the name of what has happened. But if we need a payload as well, we need to create an object and put the name as a type, and then second part will be a payload. This is how you do DevTools. Again, DevTools as a function, you import it from Zustand middleware, then you provide options, and also you provide options for every actions in every store. Again, you can start simple, and only when you need all the details in your Redux DevTools, you can provide more data in your actions. This was the first middleware we use in our project. Let's go to the second one. Actually, I listed two of them. Let's speak about both of them. So one of them we actually use, another one I would love to have in our project. So let's speak about Persist. Again, from the Redux world, there is a Redux Persist, and the idea is to persist data in the browser. So we have something already in the user browser when he visits our application not for the first time. And here the idea is exactly the same, but comparing to Redux world, I think it's better, because in Redux world there is no standard for persist middleware. The one most people use was not updated for a lot of years, actually. And people made forks from that, and I actually don't know what people use nowadays, but I remember it was a mess. In this case, we have this middleware out of the box, so we can import and use it, and we can be sure that it's up to date and it's safe to use it, actually. So as I said, with middlewares, we nest one middleware into another. The order most of the time doesn't matter. I don't know, maybe in some cases it is matter, but in this case we can just reverse the order, and it would work the same way. Persist also has options. So these options goes to Persist, these options goes to DevTools. So for Persist, by default, it is a local storage, but we can also say, I didn't put the actual name, how the option looks like, but we can say we need a local storage or we need session storage, or we can even create in-memory object and store everything in memory. It's up to us. So the main idea is to provide the actual name, because we will have different objects in our store. So we define names for each of them, and then we can define what exactly do we want to store. In this case, we can specify that we want only exact pieces of this store, or we can say we need everything but actions. And if we want to extract only actions, it's actually very simple to do, because all our actions listed in the one property in this store object, which is also very useful in this case. So partialize takes a function, and then it returns an object which will be stored, in this case, in a local storage by default. This is the second middleware we use, not in every component, but in some of our components. And the one also came, at least to my mind, from the Redux Toolkit world, because in Redux Toolkit Immer, this is something that comes by default. In this case, Immer, it's let's say opinionated approach, because DevTools and Persist we imported just from Zustand middleware, but in this case it's middleware /Immer. Plus we need to install it as a dependency manually. They did it on purpose. Before it was different, but with the latest versions of Zustand, they changed the approach, because not everyone used this middleware. But the idea is very simple. It makes easier our logic. We can mutate data, but Immer will make it immutable anyway, just behind the hood, how people used to call it. So 2 middlewares we use, plus one additional I would love to have on the project as well, just for simplicity. Then another pattern. Let me check if I didn't use the correct number. No, it's correct. So providers. We actually use it rarely, and we use 2 different approaches for providers. You can find only one of them actually in the documentation, because the first one is a fake provider. But let me explain it first. If you take a look, it's not a provider at all. It looks like a dummy component which returns null. But sometimes we need just to fetch something. As I said, in our project, we use GraphQL plus WebSocket. So most of the time, we don't need to fetch. But there are some cases when we need to use some rewards or bonuses in this case. And there is no API for us to do it in GraphQL. Again, I don't know why. This is a different part of the system, and I don't want to talk about it now, but we need to fetch something. And if we do it as a hook, because this is literally looks like a custom hook, at least to me. But if we do it as a hook, we need to decide where is the right place to use this hook. But now it's just a provider. We can place it anywhere. We don't need to wrap any other components into it, just call of provider, and it will just work. We will get all the data we need. And we can decide, again, if it's on the top level in the application, or it needs to be used in certain areas of the application, certain pages, let's say. The second part of providers, the actual provider. Again, this page can be very, very big. I try to make it as short as possible. So how it looks. First of all, in this case, let's have a look at this piece. It's a create store function, not a create. Remember I said that probably we need only one function from Zustand if we don't speak about middlewares. But in some cases, we might need this create store function as well. Initially, Zustand created this function for non-React libraries. You can use it in vanilla JavaScript, for example, but sometimes even with React application, it can be useful. So in this case, it returns us another function, which we use later to actually create a store. So let's have a look how it works. Our provider, so somewhere we created a context, so it's not part of this listing, but somewhere we created it. Then we create a component called something provider, which takes children's, of course, and some settings. In this case, settings, it can be initial props, whatever. The main idea here is to check whether this store already was created, and if not, we need to create this store using the function we prepared in advance. And it can be another function around these settings we received, checking, okay, what we received. Okay, this will be our defaults. If we receive this, use that. So again, any logic around it, whatever we need. And then we pass it down as a provider. And since we use context provider in this case, by the way, in React 19, we don't need to use .provider anymore. But if we use it as a provider, we still need to use to read from this context. And in order to make it easier, again, we create a custom function, custom hook, and inside of this hook, we use context hook. We use context hook. Today, again, there is a utility called use. We can use it instead of use context hook. It's up to us. And if this hook was called outside of provider, then we will throw an error. And then we return another piece of Zustand. Again, it's imported from Zustand library, same way as a create, store, and create functions. And we pass the store that we read from context provider and selector we received. And then we can use this hook with our selectors and create custom hooks around it. So basically, all the rest logic I shared before, it's applicable to this hook as well. This is our store. And around this store, we create our custom hooks as well. I think it was the last pattern I wanted to share. Let's say about two other patterns we don't use, but I would love to have it. So the first one from the official doc, it says don't nest everything when it comes to middlewares, because nesting can be bad when we have more than 3 middlewares, let's say. Even with 3, it can be challenging. Immer, let's say, might not have any settings, but Persist DevTools will have for sure. Instead, they propose us to create a dedicated function. In this case, it's called with middleware, which will take config or the actual store, and then configuration for each middleware. And then inside of this function call, we will nest all the middlewares, and we will provide all the necessary configs to those middlewares. And then it will be easier to use. Inside of create function, we can invoke only one helper function and provide all the settings in one object, which can obviously be prepared in advance as well. I like this pattern, and probably we will be using it as well one day. Going forward, the last pattern I wanted to share with you, the one I like. We will speak about patterns I don't like and I don't recommend, but they also exist. This is the pattern when we can link our state to the URL. Again, there is a dedicated page for this in the official documentation, but the main idea is to have a custom hook which will use standard URL search params and will read from those params. And when it's needed, when the store is updated, so this is on the mount event to get everything what we have in the params, in query params in the URL. And then when we update anything as a user, it will be tracked in this dependency array. In this case, it's only search value from filters, and then we will update it using this params set function. Probably we don't even need this one. It should be hidden somewhere here. So using that, we can have shareable links that people can share or store in favorites. We can also think of different history behavior for our application, and obviously we can persist data on reload even without using persist library. What we don't use global stores. I don't like this idea. Even in Redux, I didn't like it. We don't use any other Redux patterns. You can find a lot of them in the official docs, so we will have a look on some of them. We don't use auto-generated selectors, even though the idea might look fun. We don't create actions outside of store. We will see what doesn't mean. Probably might have sense, but we don't use it. And then, as I said, we don't use as much providers, and probably we would not use it, but we have this very complex logic around settings. Again, I don't want to talk about in details about this one. So the first pattern about the global store. Some people say it's a recommended approach. I personally haven't seen that in the official doc that they state is that this approach is a recommended one. But how does it work? You can create separate functions as slices, then combine everything, spread everything into the one global hook, and then use it everywhere. We can use it, but we don't. We create dedicated hooks for different parts of the applications, and I already said why it's better. In this case, it's independency of the logic and the code splitting also better. I think this is the main idea behind our decision. Then the Redux pattern. To be honest, I don't even know why they decided to use it. Probably some people complained that maybe it was difficult for them to migrate to Zustand from Redux. Maybe they just used to work with this approach. But in the official docs, they say, okay, you can still create a type of the actions. You can still have reducers and read from these types as actions. And then you can create one dispatch function as an action and provide different types of actions as args and use it like this. Again, we decided to use only actions property and have everything nested inside. I think it's much easier and enjoyable to work with. Then after generated selectors, actually a very cool idea, but I don't know, we don't use it. In this case, I don't show what kind of logic helps us to create it, but you can find it in the official docs. But as a pattern, you create the store the same way I've shown it before, but then you create another hook. So you use this helper function around your hook, and it help us to extract any property we want just with just using dot notation. So it will be the store name dot use dot a certain property. It can be a property but still as a function to get the value, or it can be an action to get the actual function and then use it. Can be useful, but again, we have our boilerplate with selectors and hooks. You can try both. We still stick to this approach. And finally, we don't actually use this approach when we can create the store, and then we can use a built-in set state function and extract everything into an external function. In this case, we can only import this function into component without using any selectors, any hooks. to extract this from the original store. In store, there is no actions at all. Everything is created outside. Can be an option. We didn't like it. As I said, we use this approach with actions property. Oof, I think that's it. Let's speak a couple of words about how and when to decide on Zustand. First of all, if you already have Redux toolkit, or it can be actually any other state management library, and it's well structured and it does its work, probably you don't need to change anything. Even if you like Zustand, just use it in a pet project or wait for another project. Then some library, again, as a Redux toolkit in particular, they have a very cool feature built in. And with Zustand, we might have a lot of manual magic if we need it. Let's say we work with a lot of data normalization. In Redux toolkit world, there is an entity adapter out of the box, and it really, really helps. With Zustand, we have nothing similar. We can obviously create everything ourselves. If we want to do this, then yes, we can use Zustand. And if your application is very basic, very simple, maybe React context will be enough for you. Even though Zustand is a very tiny library, it will not add too much stuff into your bundle. But anyway, maybe React context could be good enough. And also, we haven't spoken about asynchronous logic, even though in Zustand it's possible and it's very easy. Every action we create can have async before the function. It will be asynchronous. No other magic like in Redux it was sync middleware. Not here. Just asynchronous action. That just it you can use it. But we decided that our responsibility for Zustand, it's only UI. And you saw why, because we work with GraphQL. But we also discussed internally that probably if we worked with REST API approach, we would choose an external library for server calls like 10-stack query, like SWR, maybe Redux query, RTK query. Because they have a lot of magic, very convenient stuff to work with state, with status of request, to work with cache in particular. And with Zustand, we need to create it manually all the time. And of course, maybe it's not something we want to do. So if your app is very basic and you need to share the form between different part of the application, context might be enough. If it's a complex UI, in our case, it was a complex UI, and Zustand was a very good choice. If it's normalization, maybe Redux toolkit or any similar library will be the better choice. So evaluate your current project and see if it works well. And if it's maintainable, you can build new features without suffering. Maybe you don't need to change anything. If you have too many contexts, even if it works well, maybe Zustand can really, really help and make everything more maintainable, which was our case. And for the new project, again, you can decide if you want to start with context API, but if you want to try Zustand, you can start with Zustand, and it will be a very nice experience, most probably. So this is it. The main idea is simplicity. We removed a lot of complex logic and it improved both developer experience and user experience as well. We decided to not use the global stores, and we focus on the domain stores or feature stores, whatever you like. And also we decided that the scope of Zustand for us, it's UI. We don't use it for requests. We can use it for requests when we need to store something, but as an exception, we can store data from another library like 10-stack query. We can receive the data and then put it into Zustand and use it everywhere if we need it, obviously. And also Zustand, with their nature, when we don't create the global store, but small pieces of the app, it makes the migration to Zustand incremental, and it's not painful. At least for us, it was a very smooth experience. But it's not a silver bullet, so you have to be mindful when you have this decision of state management change. Thank you. This is QR codes. You can share your feedback about this webinar, or you can use LinkedIn and Telegram to be part of the community. And I will use my phone to see your questions, if you have them. I have a couple of questions I received even before the webinar. One of them was about my YouTube channel and it was not related to this topic, so I will ignore it. Sorry, you can put it somewhere in my channel. Then the question was, why was Zustand chosen for the project? What were you guided by? So I think I already gave you a brief explanation about it. But first of all, we did a research. So we decided that we will see what is on the market, because today we have more than 10 a good state management with different approaches. But again, we decided that for experience of our teams, and we had a lot of people, Zustand is a straightforward solutions, because people didn't need to learn new things. Because again, if people had Redux experience, the transition was smooth. If they never worked with state management, to learn Zustand, it's just an hour, and apply all the recommendation we had. And we get POC, it worked for us, and since then we already use it for almost 2 years in production. Another question, what is the best store solution in terms of PWAs? To be honest, I worked with PWAs only once. It was 2 years ago, and it was React application without state management at all. And I remember I recommended to use Zustand there as well, but we never introduced it in the project, and it worked only with React context. So honest answer, I haven't tried, but also I don't see any reasons why Zustand wouldn't work with PWAs. I think it's worth trying at least. And I guess no other questions, right? Yeah, I don't see any questions. So thanks a lot for participation. If you have more questions, you can reach me in my YouTube channel. Again, you can find this link, youtube.com it's in Spanish, at missionapp, and leave a comment somewhere there. I have a Zustand video as well, so you can continue this conversation over there. So thanks for participation, and all the best. Bye.